Okay, madam, you can start the class. Hello, madam, you can start the class.
Okay. Dear students, welcome to the second half of the class on the esophagus. Hope you have revised and come. Today I'm going to complete the class on the benign esophageal disorders, whatever is left, and then on this carcinoma of the esophagus. So last class we had on reflex esophagitis, GERD, achalasia, cardia, and other benign disorders. Today we are going to I'm starting with other esophageal motility disorders. I'll just tell since you are 6th semester students, I'll try to tell some little theory, and then basing on that we shall do MCQs. Meanwhile, if I ask any question, I would expect you to answer basing on the knowledge that I have imparted prior discussion, right? So now, the esophageal motility disorders, which is achalasia cardia is one of them. Basing on the disorder, it is classified into first is pharyngoesophageal junction, where mostly medical problems like neurological, motor neuron diseases, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, all myasthenia gravis, muscular dystrophy, all these are also associated with dysphagia, that is difficulty in swallowing. If there is abnormal neuronal conduction, there is going to be a dysphagia. But then we have a surgical cause, that is pharyngoesophageal diverticulum. This is the only surgical cause causing dysphagia, which is having a proximal esophagus as the site of disease. Remember, when we are doing bits on esophageal diverticulum, Jenker's diverticulum or pharyngoesophageal diverticulum is at the pharyngoesophageal junction, that is proximal esophagus. Next, the other cause of esophageal motility disorders are the disorders of the body and the body of the esophagus, that is diffuse esophageal spasm, where this is called nutcracker esophagus, where there is diffuse spasm of the esophagus with secondary contractions, peristaltic waves developing apart from the primary waves. Next, we also have autoimmune disorders like systemic sclerosis. These idioms, sometimes they are reflux associated involving the lower esophagus. So systemic sclerosis, scleroderma, all these things, they involve the lower esophagus. Next, allergic causes. This is non-specific esophageal dysmotility, so eosinophilic esophagitis. Next is the achalasia cardia. You all know that the lower esophageal sphincter fails to relax because of the absence of myenteric neurons and plexuses in the Auerbach's plexus. So just remember that the cause may be in the proximal 1/3, in the body, in the lower 1/3. So proximal 1/3 is Jenker's diverticulum, diffuse body is esophageal spasm, sclerosis, scleroderma is in lower esophagus, allergic also it's entire esophagus, achalasia is the lower esophagus. So now let us do one bit on this motility disorders. Corkscrew esophagus is seen which of the following conditions? Carcinoma esophagus, scleroderma, achalasia cardia, diffuse esophageal spasm. It becomes like a diffuse spasm, like a corkscrew it will be. So definitely this must be a diffuse esophageal spasm, because carcinoma esophagus cannot have diffuse spasm as such. And scleroderma, we have read that it is in the lower 1/3. Achalasia cardia is also lower 1/3. Next, most common motility disorder leading to dysphagia is achalasia cardia. Right? Motility in the upper third of the esophagus is decreased in all except. Just see, we have discussed what are the proximal 1/3 disorders. Pseudobulbar palsy. Yes, this must be a neuronal problem. This is involving the proximal upper third. Chagas disease also is like achalasia cardia. So this must be lower one third. So this is not the answer. Myasthenia gravis, yes, this is also involving upper one third of the esophagus. Scleroderma, lower one third. Cricopharyngeal carcinoma as such is not a motility disorder. So you cannot consider E as an answer at all. So here we have the A and C as the answers here. So you must be able to see if there are multiple bits basing on the exam that you are writing, whether there are multiple answers or not. So A and C must be the answers. So next, most common motility disorder leading to dysphagia.
Not
Most common, again we have, what is the answer for most
Achalasia.
common motility disorder, students?
Achalasia cardia.
Very good. So achalasia cardia should be the answer. Very good. Very
Achalasia
nice.
cardia.
Next, see, this is a corkscrew esophagus. How would the esophagus becomes? Multiple peristaltic waves occur. It is not that a primary peristaltic wave that is voluntarily started with our swallowing, that generates a peristaltic wave in the esophagus normally, and for that peristaltic wave, the lower esophageal sphincter relaxes. But in case of diffuse esophageal spasm, multiple waves occur, and the esophagus also fails to relax. So this is a picture of barium swallow. They have made the patient swallow the barium, and when the patient is swallowing, this picture is taken. So this is, if this film barium swallow is shown, this is a diffuse esophageal spasm. Right. Now let us do some bits on the diverticulum. Diverticulum is outpouching, a protrusion of the esophageal mucosa is called diverticulum. And now this can be in the proximal one third, in the middle one third, and the lower one third. So now let us see the Jemker's diverticulum. This must, if in your ENT classes also, this might have been covered. So this Jemker's diverticulum is called a pulsion diverticulum. That is a pressure diverticulum. Due to pressure, the mucosa and submucosa are coming out of the lining of the wall of the esophagus. So from where they are coming, so this is in the upper one third of the esophagus at the cervico-pharyngoesophageal junction. It is coming through a area called Killian's triangle or Killian's dehiscence. What is this Killian's triangle or dehiscence? It is between in the inferior constrictor muscle. This you must remember. Inferior constrictor muscle. This has an oblique and horizontal fibers. So there is a dehiscence, a gap between the oblique fibers and horizontal fibers of inferior constrictor. So oblique fibers are called thyropharynges, and then horizontal fibers are called cricopharynges. So there is a gap because of abnormal swallowing act. The person is having an abnormal swallowing act. So pressure is generated when the person is starting the swallowing movement. So due to the pressure, the esophagus pouches out through this inferior constrictor. So this pressure is due to neuromuscular incoordination. Clinical features are, it is over 50 years. Symptom is dysphagia. Then this diverticulum is a pouch, isn't it? So now the food enters from the esophagus into the side pouch, and the food will stay in that, and it gets putrefied, decomposed, and when the patient lies down in a supine position, through the mouth of the diverticulum, the food comes into the esophagus. So he will find that foul-smelling food entering into the esophagus. He can feel it. Sometimes this can be associated with aspiration into the lung, and he may also have pneumonia, lung abscess, etc. due to aspiration. Next is associated cervical webs are also seen with this. So you must check for the cervical webs when you are treating surgically. Next is management is you have to stitch the gap and then excise the diverticulum. This is the management. So cricopharyngeal myotomy and diverticulopexy, closing the mouth or even excision of the if it is big enough, you have to even excise it, right? So these are some points that you should know of Jemker's diverticulum. So basing on this, we are going to have a question. So now see this one, you can see this is a barium swallow showing the diverticulum. So this is the main esophagus. This one is the main esophagus, while so through this causing pressure on the esophagus. So the main esophagus is now compressed while the diverticulum is filling, right? So this is how a diverticulum appears. Now, what is the, let us do some bits. Best investigation for Jenker's diverticulum is, one is a barium swallow, endoscopy, CECT, endoscopic ultrasound. So what is the answer, students?
Barium swallow.
Very good. Barium swallow, you
Barium
can very nicely delineate the position. Very nice. Now, true statement about Zenker's diverticulum. Is it congenital? Is it congenital, students?
No, madam.
No, ma'am.
Very nice. Who is answering? I want to know the name.
Manjunath.
Very good. So this is not congenital. This is over a period of time due to the abnormal swallowing mechanism that the patient has developed. This abnormal swallowing mechanism is due to neuromuscular problems. So this is not congenital. Then feeling of obstruction in esophagus, that means dysphagia. Is it associated with dysphagia or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Is it a traction
Yes, ma'am.
diverticulum? It is not a traction diverticulum. Traction diverticulum, I'll tell you, traction means pulling. This is not pulling, right? It is not present with recurrent aspiration pneumonia. Is it true?
No.
No.
No,
So this
ma'am.
is also not. So you can only take B as the answer. So you must think and eliminate one by one what is correct. Next is, which of the following is true about Jenker's? See, what is true they're asking. It is asymptomatic. Is it asymptomatic?
No.
No, madam.
No.
Is it in the mid esophagus?
No.
No.
No, it is in the upper 1/3. Treatment, does it occur in children?
No.
No, madam.
It is above 50 we saw. So treatment is simple excision. So this must be the answer, right? Excision of the diverticulum is the treatment. So only C matches for this question. Though it is a PGI bit, we have eliminated. This must be the only answer. Next, commonest complication of Jenker's diverticulum. Dysphonia, GERD, lung abscess, perforation. What is the answer?
Lung abscess.
Very good. So lung abscess must be the answer because of it is highly placed, and then there is always aspiration into the lung. So lung abscess must be the question. Next. So now this also we have seen this pharyngeal diverticulum or Jenker's diverticulum or a Pulsion diverticulum. I have told you it is protrusion from which muscle? Inferior, middle, superior. Which muscle?
Inferior.
Very good. Inferior constrictor muscle is the answer. Dahlmann's procedure is used in. So this excision is called Dahlmann's procedure. Excision of the diverticulum and closure of the dehiscence is called Dahlmann's operation. Right? Next is, an elderly male presents with history of dysphagia, regurgitation, foul breath, and cough. See, bilateral lung crepitations are seen. Most likely diagnosis is Chatsky's ring, Jenker's diverticulum, corkscrew esophagus, Plummer-Vinson syndrome. So here we should think what are the symptoms of each disease. Then you have to eliminate. So here corkscrew esophagus is always dysphagia but no regurgitation. So this is eliminated. Do you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Plummer-Vinson syndrome also there is no diverticulum. It is only web that is producing dysphagia. So this is not the answer. Satchki's ring is, again, this is a ring at the gastroesophageal junction. Nothing to do with lung creps and all. So we are left with Jenker's diverticulum. So do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now let us see the scleroderma. Scleroderma, we have seen that it is associated with esophageal spasm. Lower esophageal is associated, lower 1/3. So This is connective tissue associated with GERD, since because there is transient relaxation, transient spasm of the lower esophageal sphincter, there is some gastroesophageal reflux disease that is occurring. So you just remember scleroderma, where all SLE, Behçet's, dermatomyositis, these are not associated. You have to mug some bits, right? Next, which part of esophagus is mainly affected in scleroderma? Again, you have to lower one third, just mug lower one third. Okay. Next, there is a syndrome called POEMS. This is a NEMO. This is an acronym. That means each letter starts to some disease. PO is polyneuropathy. E is actually endocrinopathy. They have given esophageal atresia, multiple myeloma, and some sclerosis. So here, this whether it's an endocrine, esophageal atresia is wrong. Endocrinopathy should be the answer. Next, mid-esophageal or traction diverticulum. So now we have completed the Jenker's diverticulum or the proximal esophageal diverticulum or a pharyngeal diverticulum or a pulsionoid. All are same. Now we have come to mid-esophageal or a traction diverticulum. So in mid-esophagus, when there are inflammatory lymph nodes posterior to the esophagus, the esophagus gets attached with fibrosis, with inflammation, and then it gets pulled when it is moving with peristalsis. This attachment to the inflamed lymph nodes will pull the esophagus. Slowly they keep, some tug will be there on the esophagus. This produces a diverticulum. You know, esophagus has no serosa. It has only mucosa, submucosa, and the muzzle layer. So it comes out through the muzzle layers. So this is called traction diverticulum. This is true diverticulum in the mid-esophagus, where all the layers are pulled. In Jenker's diverticulum, we are getting mucosa, submucosa. Here it is all the layers are coming. Then the lymph nodes are inflamed with tuberculosis or any other histoplasmosis, etc. So this presents again as a dysphagia or a severe chest pain. Then the treatment is excision or diverticulopexy, right? So now you can see here mid-esophageal diverticulum. There's a large mouth. It is nicely emptying. The esophagus has got attached to the lymph node. So mid-esophagus is a traction diverticulum. It is a true diverticulum. Just remember this. Okay. Next is lower esophageal diverticulum or epiphrenic. That means epi means upon, nearer to. Phrenic is diaphragm. So this must be a lower esophageal, distal 1/3 of the esophagus within 10 centimeters of gastroesophageal junction. This is related to thickened distal esophageal musculature or increased intraluminal pressure. So this is also a pulsion diverticulum. When there is pressure involved, this is called pulsion diverticulum. This is a false diverticulum associated with achalasia and then other neuromuscular disorders. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, all these things you should remember. This is more on the right side and wide mouth. So these just see some bits, you know, they test your memory. Some bits test your logic. Some bits test your application. So they're interrelated, several anatomy related to clinical features related to investigation. Then only you will be able to tell the answer. So you have to see. These are all your memory bits. We cannot just mug them and remember. Okay. Next is Plummer-Vinson syndrome. So Plummer-Vinson syndrome is a Patterson-Kelly syndrome again. Here you elderly female having an esophageal web, post-cricoid web, and a gross anemia manifested as glossitis and then koilonychia. So this is iron deficiency anemia associated with dysphagia. So remember this again. Patterson-Brown-Kelly syndrome is characterized by all except. See, all this 1, 2, 3 I have told you. Dysphagia due to web, then anemia, then iron deficiency anemia features are there. So is it lower esophageal web? No, it is a post-cricoid web. So it is upper esophageal, just below the cricoid cartilage, just below the pharynx. So it is a upper esophageal. This is wrong. Is it associated with iron deficiency anemia?
Yes.
Yes. Is it a common in adult female?
Yes.
Yes. Is it pre-malignant?
No.
Yes. This is a
Yes, ma'am.
Acha.
pre-malignant. Patients here, B is to put lower esophageal. All are true except they have given. So A is the answer. Have you understood? You must see how the question is framed. Are you convinced, students? Students, are you convinced or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So now, in Plummer-Vinson syndrome, obstruction is due to what? You needn't even post Cricut web. So you find out and then finished. Now we'll come with Barrett's esophagus. Bits on Barrett's esophagus. So Barrett's esophagus, can you tell me, I think you have not completed this in your theory classes. So Barrett's esophagus is due to gastroesophageal reflux disease, where there is relaxation of the sphincter and then the gastric contents are repeatedly refluxing into the lower 1/3 of the esophagus. So what is happening when lower esophagus is exposed to the gastric content? Slowly the lining will turn into gastric lining, right? Normally the lower, this area is squamocolumnar junction, but that is now replaced with a columnar epithelium. So this columnar epithelium will give us a pink area. This is squamous epithelium. The pale areas are squamous epithelium. Well, the pink tongue-like projections are all columnar epithelium. So this columnar epithelium, over a period of time, it undergoes change into intestinal metaplasia. So once this intestinal metaplasia occurs, this is a precursor to develop carcinoma, right? So here, this will develop lower 1/3 carcinoma of the esophagus, and also it spreads into the cardioesophageal junction. So you can consider there is a GE junction malignancy. So Barrett's esophagus is a precursor, is a pre-malignant condition. It will, over a period of time, will develop into a GE junction tumor. So just remember lower esophagus lined by columnar epithelium. That's all, right? Next is, again, once there is intestinal metaplasia, we call it as a Barrett's esophagus, right? So just remember Barrett's esophagus, columnar epithelium change, intestinal metaplasia. All these are linked. So the Barrett's esophagus can lead to stricture, reflux esophagitis, peptic ulcer, achalasia. This is an Ames bit. So you have to be careful and write. So here, stricture is again the Stachkis, rings and webs. So this stricture is not associated with Barrett's esophagus. So now again, reflux esophagitis, yes. Peptic ulcer, no. Achalasia, no. Do you understand how I have come to this reflux esophagitis?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So now, Barrett's ulcer is due to ischemia. Is it ischemia?
No.
Ectopic gastric
No,
mucosa?
No.
Ectopic gastric mucosa will be in Meckel's diverticulum, right? Bile reflux. Is it bile reflux?
No.
No, ma'am.
Reflux esophagitis?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Very good. Now, a chronic alcoholic presents with regurgitation and retrosternal pain. Endoscopy biopsy confirms Barrett's esophagus. What is most appropriate management in this case? See, Barrett's esophagus is not a peptic ulcer. So, of course, acid is coming. You give PPI and all, but what is the most appropriate management? I told you Barrett's esophagus is intestinal metaplasia and GE junction tumor. So, what should you do? Most appropriate is asking. So, endoscopic biopsy every 2 years and keep him under observation. That should be the answer. Have you understood, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, Let us do some bits on dysphagia. Dysphagia is difficulty in swallowing. Again, some bit is progressive, intermittent. Those terminologies are being used. So I just put these words. So progressive dysphagia means over a period of time the dysphagia is worsening. So what is this worsening dysphagia? Achalasia, scleroderma, peptic stricture, the Satchke's webs and rings, carcinoma. So these are progressively the dysphagia is increasing. While intermittent, that means the patient will have, this peptic stricture and Satchke's ring are again different. This is fibrosis, right? So Satchke's ring is lower esophageal ring, and diffuse esophageal spasm, Jenker's diverticulum. These are dysphagia is intermittent because when the diverticulum is full and compressing on the esophagus, the patient will experience dysphagia. When the diverticulum is empty, he may not have that much of dysphagia. Do you agree with me? This classification, students?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
So now let us do this. Intermittent dysphagia is caused by stricture, reflux esophagitis, achalasia cardia, pharyngeal diverticulum, diffuse esophageal spasm. So what could be the answers?
Pharyngeal diverticulum.
Diffuse esophageal spasm. So you can put these two. Next, odynophagia. Odynophagia means it is pain during swallowing. So any pain means inflammation. Just choose inflammations here. So here we have monilial esophagitis, herpes esophagitis. So monilial esophagitis is the answer. Just remember. Next, another entity, dysphagia lusoria. You know what is dysphagia lusoria, students? It is due to abnormal aberrant vessels. See, behind the esophagus, we have the aorta. Okay. So now some abnormal vessels are coming up from the this arch of aorta. So that is causing a pressure on the esophagus. So what should we choose here? Abnormal, it is aberrant vessels by birth. Congenitally, the person has an abnormally arising artery from the aorta. So that should be. So abnormal elongation of arch of aorta. Just keep this aside. Aneurysm of arch of aorta. Yes, this can be a dysphagia, but we won't call it as a lusoria. Dysphagia lusoria means aberrant, abnormal vessel. So aneurysm is a degenerative condition of the aorta. So this cannot be. Esophageal web, no. Esophageal diverticula, no. So all these conditions may be associated with dysphagia, but the terminology of dysphagia lusoria means aberrant or abnormal artery from arch of aorta. So A should be the answer. Do you agree with me, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, all are true about dysphagia lusoria except a right aortic arch, vascular ring due to aberrant subclavian artery causing pressure on esophagus acquired in later life. So which one do you think it is wrong, students?
C is wrong, ma'am.
C.
Due to aberrant subclavian artery.
Why not? This is a congenital abnormality. It can be congenitally arising as something low down, no? Why is it wrong? This is also congenital abnormality. But congenital abnormalities, do they present late in life?
No, ma'am.
So this must be the wrong. Do you agree with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no? You're not telling loud. Not yet convinced?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So next important thing is Borhave syndrome. This is a bit where Borhave syndrome is due to spontaneous perforation of esophagus. So why did we use spontaneous perforation? Because spontaneously it is perforating. So the other types of perforations are also there. What are the other types of perforation? It can be a traumatic perforation. It can be an iatrogenic perforation. So now this Borhave syndrome is spontaneously the esophagus is perforated when a person is vomiting forcefully against a closed glottis. So the vomiting has suddenly started with on a full stomach, but the glottis has not opened for the reverse peristalsis. Glottis is closed and a lot of food is coming into the esophagus. So then the esophagus perforates. So where does it perforate? In the lower 1/3 and on the left side and posteriorly. See, these are all your memory that you have to remember. Third level, lot of food, full stomach. Patient is nicely having lot of, the person is having a big party, consuming lot of food. Suddenly so much food is eaten that suddenly vomiting comes. Esophageal sphincter relaxes and vomiting comes. So out of pressure it is perforated. So a stream of food directly goes into the mediastinum and the pleural cavity. So suddenly the patient will have severe pain, shortness of breath. If you examine, pneumomediastinum will be there, even subcutaneous emphysema will be there. So this is an emergency presentation. Then if you take a chest X-ray, you can see hydropneumothorax. That means air and fluid. In mediastinitis, so a lot of fluid will be secreted in the mediastinum. CT scan also will show air fluid level. Confirmation is a gastrographin swallow. We generally don't, we can even give barium swallow, but gastrographin is, barium is a lot of irritant. So there can be more of mediastinitis, and thus inflammation will produce inflammation of the esophagus. So esophagus will become more like a blotting paper. So gastrographin swallow. The treatment is early repair. Because the late the repair, the esophagus is blotting, you can, like a blotting paper, your repair will fail. So just remember these points on Borhöved syndrome and we'll do the bits. This is a Mackler's triad. Includes vomiting, subcutaneous emphysema, lower thoracic pain. So in this Mackler's triad, they have included A, B, C. Just remember, A, B, C is a Mackler's triad. But we also know that pleural effusion can occur in hydropneumothorax. But for Mackler's triad, these three entities are included: vomiting, patient presenting with vomiting, severe chest pain, and on examination, if there is some subcutaneous emphysema in the thoracic region or in the cervical region, then this is called Mackler's triad. Now, true about Borhöved syndrome. Just tell me, most common at lower 1/3. Is it true or false?
True, ma'am.
True. Is hematemesis the early symptom? What is the early symptom? The next one, acute chest pain is the first early symptom, and vomiting. Then surgically treated or not?
Yes. Or the
Yes,
repair.
it should be surgically treated. And then early repair or late repair? Operation is an early. So E is wrong. So true is A is correct, C is correct, D is correct. This is a PGI bit. You should be careful. Multiple answers will be there, and if wrongly you choose, there will be minus answers. Next, this is iatrogenic or traumatic esophageal perforation. What we are talking. So, barium swallow is diagnostic. Treatment is primary repair. Most common after penetrating injury. Mortality increased if repair after 24 hours. So, which one? I think all are correct, right? Right? Next, Borhöved syndrome is it iatrogenic, means caused during treatment by the treating doctor. Is it iatrogenic or spontaneous?
Spontaneous.
So this is wrong. This is not true. Is it silent manifestation? The patient is in severe pain. So this is wrong. Presence with acute chest pain. Yes. Treatment is surgical. So A, C, D. Right? Next is, which is most common site for iatrogenic esophageal perforation? That means iatrogenic. That means most commonly when they're doing an upper GI endoscopy. They put the scope. If they put the scope where it blindly without seeing, the narrowest part of the esophagus is the upper esophageal sphincter, just at the cricopharyngeal junction, the cricopharynx. So cervical portion, most common site for iatrogenic esophageal perforation is cervical portion. But this bit is controversial. I have seen in Bailey and Love, they have given as more common in lower and lower esophagus, but this here in this bit they're telling cervical portion. We have to verify and see what is it. But commonest cause of esophageal perforation is instrumentation. If you take it, okay, is iatrogenic instrumental perforation is more common than spontaneous perforation, right? Like in majority of patients with esophageal leaks in thoracic cavity of less than 12 hours duration, treatment of choice. See, that means the patient has come to you within 24 hours. So always you can do a primary closure and put a drain there and put an antibiotic. Just see. The rest all are after 24 hours, late presentations. Understood? So less than 12 hours, it's primary closure of the perforation. Next, most common site of spontaneous perforation. Where is it? Spontaneous? Lower esophageal, isn't it?
Yes.
Spontaneous is Borowis, lower esophageal. So this cardioesophageal junction, that is the answer. Don't get confused with all these things that they have given. Investigation of choice for esophageal rupture. So here, water-soluble, low molecular weight contrast swallow. This must be the, I told you, gastrographin, isn't it? So this must be the answer. Now coming to the tracheoesophageal fistula. So let us see a bit theory about tracheoesophageal fistula. Tracheoesophageal communication. Abnormal communication is called tracheoesophageal communication. Tracheoesophageal fistula. This can be a congenital, it can be acquired. Congenital is the baby is born with this abnormality where the esophagus is not canalized. There is no lumen for the esophagus. It is just a tissue that is there. So now this is mostly when the esophagus is not canalized. This will have a abnormal communication with the adjacent trachea, right? So the part of esophagus that is not canalized will have a proximal pouch, not canalized, then distal pouch. So this abnormal canalization can be from the proximal pouch or from the distal pouch of the esophagus. So now esophagus, a part which is not canalized. You understood? So just imagine, not the whole entire esophagus is atretic. A segment of esophagus is atretic. The part which is proximal is called proximal pouch. The part of esophagus below the atresia segment is called distal pouch. So this may have communication. So this is classified as atresia only. That means no fistulous communication with trachea. Atresia with proximal TEF, that means proximal pouch is communicating with trachea. This is only 2%. Well, atresia with distal TEVS is the most common and 85%. That means the distal segment of the esophagus is communicating with the trachea. So now atresia with both proximal pouch and distal pouch is very rare, only 1%. So everything is a bit for you. Male preponderance. Next, coming to bits. Esophageal atresia is most commonly associated with cardiac anomalies. So this cardiovascular anomaly is the answer here. Next, most common type of TEF. What is the most common type?
Distal segment.
Very good. So
Distal
esophageal
segment.
atresia with fistula with distal segment is the answer. Very good. Now coming to the Satchki's ring or webs. I have not taken much bits because we have to go and finish the carcinomas esophagus also today only. So the Satchki's ring is a mucosal ring. This is a mucosa and submucosal ring. Mucosal ring at squamocolumnar. Dysphagia is a symptom. Is it an inflammatory stricture? What is it? So here, actually, it has mucosal, it has muscular, all will go. So inflammatory stricture. So this is a multiple answer. You have to be careful. It has correct skeletal muscle located lower esophagus, causes dysphagia, contains all layers of esophagus. So it is not skeletal. Lower esophagus is not, it's a smooth muscle. So this is not. So BCD should be the answer. Next, coming to foreign bodies in the esophagus. Again, a foreign body gets usually arrested in which part of esophagus? Students, you tell me, reading this bit, cardiac part, middle third, below the cricopharynx, above the cricopharynx. Huh?
Above the cricopharynx.
Very good. So above the cricopharynx is the answer. Very well said. Next is second swallowing in barium meal study is found in pharyngeal pouch, achalasia cardia, scleroderma, reflux esophagitis. So here remember achalasia cardia. That's all. Just mug. Hammond's sign is seen in acute pericarditis, where there is a perforation of the esophagus, then the inflammation around the pericardium. So you can hear that abnormal sound. So just you also mug some signs. Next, coming to the carcinoma of the esophagus now. So coming to the carcinoma of the esophagus. So here I just put some theory for you. Later we'll do some bits. Most common esophageal cancer worldwide. So see, these are two entities. We have a squamous cell carcinoma, we have adenocarcinoma. Squamous cell carcinoma is more common. And then in developing countries where there is H. pylori infection and peptic ulcers and the reflux disease, we have a squamous, the lower 1/3 is squamous cell carcinoma, but sorry, in developing countries, it is squamous cell carcinoma, while in developed countries where there is obesity, GERD is more common in obese people, and then this Barrett's esophagus and adenocarcinoma is more common. So Western countries, adenocarcinoma, developing countries, squamous cell carcinoma. It is more common in males. Middle 1/3 is the most common area for carcinoma. Then the treatment, chemotherapy regimen, epirubicin, cisplatinum, and 5-FU. You just remember these drugs which are present, you have to choose them. So clinical features, very, very deceptive disease. It won't have any symptoms, just may present as a they will say peptic like acid peptic disorder, it may present. Later dysphagia will come. Slowly the patient will have solids, dysphagia to solids, then dysphagia to liquids. Can you tell me a disease where there is dysphagia to solids and liquids? Students?
Rabies, ma'am.
No, surgical condition. Achalasia cardia, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Achalasia cardia has dysphagia to solids but here in carcinoma esophagus, first it is to solids, then slowly to liquids, then it is an absolute dysphagia. That means he cannot even swallow his own saliva. That is called absolute dysphagia. So because of this dysphagia, he is limiting his food, so weight loss will be there. Then choking, coughing, slowly the fluid will be collected in the above the site of the growth, so there will be aspiration, regurgitation. Then slowly, I told you, acquired tracheoesophageal fistula is due to a advanced carcinoma. See, the esophagus has no serosa, so it's only the mucosa, submucosa, and the muscle. So it will very early spread into the local structures like trachea and the mediastinum and all. So now, hoarseness and vocal cord paralysis from direct invasion into the recurrent laryngeal nerve in advanced cases. Most common site of metastasis is liver, lung, bone. So just remember these things. Next, this is an aggressive biological behavior. rapidly infiltrates, and the esophagus is richly supplied with lymphatics, early involvement of lymph nodes. So diagnosis is all first investigation in barium swallow will tell you the extent of the involvement of the esophagus. It will give an idea of the how much segment to be excised and all. Next, so early investigation, first choice is barium swallow, but definitive investigation is always visualization and biopsy. That is, endoscopy is the investigation of choice, but first investigation is barium swallow. Staging, investigation to staging of the disease. Staging is tumor and the tumor stage, lymph nodal stage, metastatic, T and M. This is called T and M. So how can you do T and M? So in esophageal carcinoma, or for that matter, on a gastrointestinal tumor, stomach, colon, it is the layers that are involved are staged. Mucosa, submucosa, T1, spread to muscularis propria 2, lamina propria 2, T3 is spread to muscularis layer, T4 is serosa and beyond. It is not the size of the tumor that determines the T stage. While in other carcinomas, like the thyroid carcinoma, if you take a cancer breast, you take, it is the size of the tumor, T1 less than 2 centimeters, T2 2 to 4 centimeters, T3 more than 5 centimeters. Like this, you stage. So here in esophagus, it is the spread of the into the layers of the esophagus. So this can be well seen by doing an endoscopic ultrasound. So you pass a probe through the endoscope and you can see nicely the layers. You can also see the structures just adjacent to the esophagus, like lymph nodes. Just remember, first investigation of choice for staging is endoscopic ultrasound. Investigation of choice for diagnosis is endoscopy. First investigation is barium swallow. So now I told you there are two types of squamous cell carcinoma, two types of carcinomas of the esophagus: squamous cell carcinoma, adenocarcinoma. So how do they behave? I also told squamous cell carcinoma is in the developing countries, adenocarcinoma is the developed countries. So in squamous cell carcinoma, it is again it is not seen before 30 years. It is 40 years. So this adenocarcinoma is seen increasing with age. Next, it is mostly seen in elderly people, and highest mortality is seen in 60 to 70 years. Most commonly, it is the middle 1/3. Adenocarcinoma is due to Barrett's esophagus, so it is lower 1/3. So adenocarcinoma lower 1/3, squamous cell carcinoma middle 1/3. But overall, the most common site for esophageal carcinoma is it is the middle 1/3. Your bit should be middle 1/3. Next is this is an exophytic lesion, fungating, that is polypoidal fungating mass. Well, this can be polypoidal, fungating, infiltrative. So infiltrative is the type of carcinoma, while here it is a fungating or a polypoidal. So here squamous cell carcinoma mostly chemoradiotherapy. Since middle 1/3 is inaccessible, the first line of management is chemoradiotherapy, and then it is also sensitive. So first thing is first line of management for squamous cell carcinoma is always chemoradiation.
It is not visible.
It is not visible.
No, ma'am.
Is it not? Oh, I'll go back and see.
Ma'am, it's okay.
Is it visible? Now is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Manjunath, is it visible to you?
No, ma'am, it is not visible.
Something at your problem at your side. Check. You are from your home, you are seeing?
Yes, ma'am.
Some local problem. Just check and rectify. Meanwhile, you listen to me and then you follow. Shall I continue? Students,
Okay, ma'am. Okay, sir.
you got it rectified, Manjunath?
It's not me, ma'am. It's I think Suchit.
Suchit. Okay, not Manjunath. Suchit. The girls, what are your names? Girls, I forgot. Last time you told me. Okay, now let us do the bits. I have told you there are types of carcinoma, the site of carcinoma, the behavior of carcinoma, and the TNM staging. I have told you. For carcinoma, tell me, achalasia, is it predisposing? Students, are you there with me?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Huh. See, achalasia, Patterson-Brown-Kelly syndrome, Jenker's
Yes, ma'am.
diverticulum, ectodermal dysplasia. What is the answer?
Zenker's level.
No, Jenker's also is pre-malignant because of the constant chronic irritation in the lining of the epithelium, there will be metaplasia dysplasia. So ectodermal dysplasia is not related to esophageal. See, they have given this dysplasia to confuse you. You will choose this. So, but this is the answer. Next, which is not a predisposing factor for carcinoma esophagus. So you must remember there will be some distractors in the options to distract you. The similar sounding words will be there which are very nearly matching, but you should be careful enough and eliminate them. So which is not a predisposing. Again, they're asking for predisposing. Esophageal diverticulum, Plummer-Wilson, and then mediastinal fibrosis, caustic ingestion. What is the answer?
Caustic ingestion.
No, caustic ingestion, that's the stricture, that inflammatory stricture that forms is also predisposed for malignancy, malignant transformation. That is where you have to excise the stricture part also. So here mediastinal fibrosis is the exception. So diverticulum, Plummer-Wilson, caustic ingestion, all three are correct. Now, Seward classification is for G junction tumors, just mug. Seward is G junction tumors. Next, T staging of esophagus is best done by, tell me students, A, B, C, D. EUS is endoscopic ultrasound, CT scan, MRI scan, PET scan. Which one?
Option A.
Ah, very good. Endoscopic ultrasound is I will show you the pictures again. Commonest site of esophageal carcinoma is? Tell me the answer quick.
Middle one.
Very good. Middle one third. Next, barium esophagogram findings in carcinoma esophagus are all except. Tell me, rat tail deformity, pencil tip appearance, apple core appearance, and filling defect. Which one is not esophageal suggestive carcinoma? What is pencil tip appearance? We have discussed last time. Achalasia cardia is pencil tip appearance, right? Rat tail, it's not exactly a deformity. Rat tail filling defect. Rat tail filling defect is carcinoma esophagus. So here pencil tip is straight away achalasia. And UPP, are you convinced?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes.
B is wrong, right? A
What is
patient
the
presents,
appearance?
pardon?
Option C, ma'am. What is this apple core appearance? How it looks?
I will show you. See, if you eat the apple from either side, you will be leaving only the middle part, which is having the seeds.
Yes, ma'am. This
Okay.
will be seen in which condition, ma'am?
Apple core appearance is seen in carcinoma, any carcinoma, right? Esophagus, colon, any tubular organ. I'll show you what is this apple core. I think I have a film. So apple core means the core of the apple which is carrying the seeds. If you eat away the other side, both sides, you have only the middle one. This is called apple core appearance. I will show you. This is seen in any carcinoma, right? Now a patient presents with dysphagia of 4 weeks duration. Now he is able to swallow liquid food only. Which of the following is the one investigation to be done? barium studies, upper G endoscopy, CT scan, esophageal manometry.
Barium studies.
Esophageal manometry.
Esophageal manometry is for achalasia, cardia, and all, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to visualize. I told you investigation of choice. You visualize. Upper G endoscopy should be the answer. Nothing to do with manometry. See, any card. See, here the patient has. He is able to swallow liquid only. That means this is a progressive dysphagia. That means probably it is. He never said liquid and solid. If we say liquid and solid, then you have to think of achalasia cardia, and then you think of the esophageal. Esophageal manometry is actually for the reflux disease, gastroesophageal reflux disease, where there is transient lower esophageal sphincter relaxations. So when you put a manometer there and you see how many times the sphincter is relaxing, how much time it is relaxing, what is the pH at the time of relaxation. So esophageal manometry is for GERD. Remember, esophageal manometry is for GERD, right? You understood, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is wrong. Barium studies. Barium studies means barium will follow through. So these are all for lower. This is actually for carcinoma of the stomach, and also if you want to see any lesion in the small bowel. This studies means several films are taken. Barium swallow is only one film. He didn't say barium swallow. They said barium studies. See, barium esophagogram, the up top. If they give like this, that you can put. But here they're telling barium studies. That means barium follow through. They will take a picture at 20 minutes. They will take a picture at 1 hour. They will take a picture at 4 hours. This is to see gastric outlet obstruction. Then with pyloric stenosis and any small bowel diseases like Crohn's and all. So barium studies is not. Esophageal manometry is not. CT scan, maybe, we don't know. But upper G endoscopy is fitting well. You know, CT scan is always used to stage the disease. Right? CT scan may be there, but we want to know the one investigation, the first investigation or investigation of choice is what they're asking. So the upper G endoscopy should fit into this. Do you agree, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So next bit. Sewell's classification. Just you read. I know I don't want to waste time. Next, what are the features of CA esophagus on barium swallow? So there can be mucosal irregularity or shouldering. I'll show you what is this shouldering. That means projections, narrowing of the lumen, rat tail filling defect, and stricture. Then proximal dilatation of the esophagus. See here, you see, this is called shouldering. You understood? The projection is coming just like shoulder. This is called apple core appearance. Just as though this side it is eaten, this side it is eaten. This is nothing but filling. The growth has spread, right? This appearance is called apple core appearance, and this projection is called shouldering. See here you can see lot of filling defects are there. Here. Now, stage of carcinoma is esophagus is best described by depth of tumor, size of tumor, histopathological grade, age of patient. Students, what is the answer? TNM stage.
Histopathology.
Any other answer?
Depth of tumor.
Depth of tumor. I told you depth means the
Layers.
layers. Mucosa, submucosa, adventitia. So depth of tumor is the answer. See, TNM classification, you can see later study. Next, lymph node metastasis in CA esophagus is best detected by Again, endoscopic ultrasound, because lymph nodes are very, very nearer to the esophagus. You can nicely see them. I will show you the pictures. Features of malignant lymph nodes. Just you have to remember, they are hypoechoic. They have rounded border contour, and the demarcation, the border demarcation will be lost. Size can be more than 1 centimeter. So here you can select. See here, you see scope. That's the black layer is the submucosa. Next is the muscularis. This is the white layer is the lamina propria. Next black layer is the muscular layers. So here how you see. So here you can see a growth that has come into the layers. So here you can see the lymph nodes. This is the aorta. This is a T2 stage. T2 by T2, it has gone from mucosa, submucosa into the adventitia, right? Like this, you can see this round part is the endoscope. These are the layers of esophagus. So nicely you can see this is the esophageal thickening. So it has come into the adventitia. This is the adjacent aorta, lymph nodes, right? Now, what is the treatment? Now, these are some bits on the we have done the bits on the clinical features. We have done bits on investigation. Now we are doing bits on treatment. So we have seen that squamous cell carcinoma, the first line of treatment is chemotherapy and radiation therapy, because middle 1/3 is in the thorax and it is not very accessible. And squamous cell carcinoma is readily radio sensitive, and now we have very good radiation machines available. So for squamous cell carcinoma, the first line of management is chemotherapy and radiotherapy. It is chemosensitive and radiotherapy. We have seen 5-fluorouracil, cisplatin, and epirubicin, other drugs. Next, for the adenocarcinoma, it is not radiosensitive, it is not chemosensitive. So the first line of management is always surgery. So what are the types of surgeries we have? We have Ivor-Lewis, and then Oringer, McKeown. Just remember these 3 surgeries, right? Ivor-Lewis is a transthoracic esophagectomy, while Oringer is transhiatal esophagectomy. McKeown is both. So they will give an incision, laparotomy and thoracotomy, big incision. Then they also give a cervical incision. You know, esophagus goes through the neck, thorax, and abdomen. So it has 3-field lymph nodal drainage. So all the 3-field lymphadenectomy is done in case of McKeown. Oringer is through the hiatus, that is, laparotomy incision is given. No, thorax is not opened. Through the abdomen only, they try to go through the diaphragmatic hiatus and loosen the esophagus and pull it into the neck and do the anastomosis. Just remember, it is not possible for you at this stage to remember everything. This is the first reading. So we have Ivor-Lewis, McKeown, Oringer, right? McKeown is 3-stage incision in the abdomen, in the thorax, and in the neck. Well, Ivor-Lewis is only thoracic approach and abdomen. Separate incisions are given. Separate laparotomy incision, separate thoracotomy. Transhiatal is an Oringer. So these are the names that you should remember now. Now, again, memory bit. First successful esophagectomy was done by Torek. So you should be very, very, they will ask you basing on the history and the diagnosis, who has done the procedure, names, everything may be asked. But simple bits are less. Nowadays, they're all application bits are there. Means you should know the anatomy to answer like this. So Torek is the answer. First successful esophagectomy is Torek. Next. Ivor-Lewis operation is the treatment of choice for cancer involving middle 1/3, because I told you thorax now. So middle 1/3. Next. Now, once you remove the esophagus, see, I have also told you esophagus is very rich in lymphatic supply. A lot of lymph nodes are involved. So you have to give 10 centimeters margin. Suppose the from the margin of this tumor, you have to go well below 10 centimeters and then you excise the esophagus. So now you have to replace the esophagus. So how will you replace? What is the best replacement for esophagus is, see, you can, I'm talking about the second bit, stomach, jejunum, colon, right side colon, left side colon. So which one? So if anything can be done, but the best substitute is always stomach because it is adjacent. So just remember, stomach is the best conduit. Conduit means again, it is the passage. So this is called gastric pull. You pull the stomach from the through the hiatus into the mediastinum, bring it up, and then you anastomose to the esophagus in the neck. So this is called gastric pull through. Same way jejunum also can be pulled. Same way colon also pulled. Mostly right side colon, transverse colon is pulled, which has a mesentery. So now if stomach is pulled, that stomach is based on right gastric and right gastroepiploic artery blood supply. So, you know, stomach has various arteries supplying. We have a right gastric, we have a left gastric, we have a gastroduodenal, we have a epiploic, right gastroepiploic, left gastroepiploic. So many arteries are there for stomach. But what do they do generally is they mobilize the stomach. So you have to mobilize it to pull it into the thorax, isn't it? So you have a spleen attached to the stomach through short gastric vessels. So here they remove the attachment of the spleen and they remove the tie up all the blood vessels on the left side, and then they pull it into the mediastinum, basing on the right gastric artery, right gastroepiploic. These two are not cut. These are on the right side. So you have to just mug these bits. So best conduit is stomach, and the blood supply is based on right gastric and gastroepiploic artery. Next, I told you lymphadenectomy you can do 1 field, 2 field, 3 field. 1 field is only intra-abdominal, 2 field is intra-abdominal, intrathoracic, 3 field is intra-abdominal, intrathoracic and cervical. So what are the palliative therapies in the carcinomas? Palliative means, see, that all the treatments are of two types. You have a curative, you have a palliative. Palliative means we are not doing with a cure intention. We know that we cannot cure. It is only a symptomatic. Suppose the patient has an obstruction, you relieve the obstruction. So we are not intending to remove the entire disease. This is called palliative. But curative means we want to remove everything, not even a microscopic evidence of disease should be there. That is called curative. So when we know that this is an advanced treatment, you give a laser, you try to burn the tumor partially with a laser or a photodynamic therapy or radiation or self-expandable metallic stents. So these are the palliative treatments that are available for carcinoma. So first line of management for squamous cell carcinoma is chemoradiation. First line of management for adenocarcinoma is esophagectomy. These are curative. While palliative is any of these things. Next, now you basing on this knowledge, let us try to do the bits. We have what is the treatment for advanced esophageal cancer? So advanced esophageal cancer means palliative. You cannot remove the entire disease. So is it chemoradiation only or curative en bloc? Chemoradiation followed by curative en bloc, chemoradiation followed by palliative en bloc. So once in advanced carcinoma, we are not trying to do any surgery. So surgery just to remove. All the three are basing on surgery. They're telling some surgery. We cannot do surgery because, you know, the esophagus and aorta, trachea, they're all very close. Once it is advanced, we cannot remove. So the A is only the answer. Do you agree with me, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Best palliation in CA esophagus. See, what is given, you see. Surgical bypass, surgical placement of a tube, or endoprosthesis, feeding jejunostomy. Which one? See, in CA, we don't want to do any surgery once it is an advanced. Palliation means is talking about advanced. So we don't want to do. Just remember what I told you in the earliest. We have laser therapy, photodynamic surgical placement of tube, no. Feeding jejunostomy, no. So endoprosthesis, we should choose. Understood, students?
Yes, ma'am.
So now I have also told you esophagus, you have to give a margin of excision as much as 10 centimeters. Okay. Well, for a stomach, you can give 5 centimeters. For a rectum, you can do 2 centimeters below the tumor border. But for esophagus, you have to go well below 10 centimeters because of the rich lymphatic supply. Next, what are the drugs that are used? Esophageal carcinoma, cisplatinum, cyclophosphamide, methotrexate, doxorubicin. So what is matching is only cisplatin is matching. Which of the following should never be carried out as a treatment for carcinoma esophagus? Gastrostomy for palliation, radiotherapy alone, radical esophagectomy, radiotherapy, and
Ma'am, a couple of questions. Methotrexate can also be used.
see, these are generally for adenocarcinomas, cyclophosphamide, methotrexate, and all. Right? So this is a squamous cell carcinoma, no? So cisplatin is a better. We have seen 5-fluorouracil, cisplatin, and epirubicin. These are the drugs, right? So this cyclophosphamide, methotrexate for adenocarcinomas. So this is we don't choose them. So here, what should not be done as a treatment for carcinoma esophagus? See, radiotherapy alone, radical esophagectomy, radiotherapy chemo. These 3 can be done. So gastrostomy for palliation. So this is not a treatment. So probably this must be the answer. We have to check with this bit more thoroughly. Right? Which of the following surgical approach was described by Oringer? Oringer means transhiatal. Just mug this. Oringer transhiatal. That's all. Best condi for esophageal reconstruction is?
Stomach.
Very good. Well, so much late. Be fast. Commonest cause for mortality in Ivor Lewis. Ivor Lewis is transthoracic. Transthoracic anastomotic leak. Anastomotic leak because esophagus has no serosa, so there is a high incidence of anastomotic leak. So if this anastomotic leak occurs in a mediastinum, there is mediastinitis, pleural effusion, lung collapse, patient will die. So anastomotic leak is the big problem with mortality can occur. Next. We have already done this bit. Right gastric, right gastroepiploic artery. Is a stomach tube is based on these two. Right? Next is some other uncommon tumors. Leiomyoma. This is a benign tumor arising from the wall of the esophagus. This can be submucosal. It can be intramural. So commonest benign tumor of the esophagus is a leiomyoma. Right? Endoscopic treatment of leiomyoma is contraindicated because chance of perforation. Dissemination, they have given perforation and dissemination. So this is not a malignancy to disseminate. So D, though perforation is there, we don't choose D. So perforation of the esophagus, because of the risk, we don't want to do a endoscopic treatment. So these are self-expanding metallic stents which are passed through the tumor into across the esophagus so that any esophageal fistula can be closed and the lumen can be maintained for some time. The food can pass through this hollowed stent. Right? Students, have you understood? Any
Yes, ma'am.
any doubts that you have or anything, you can take my number from madam. You can ask student. Pardon. You can take my number from madam. You can WhatsApp me or ask questions, anything that you have not followed in the esophagus chapter. I have completed the chapter of esophagus. I have done anatomy, physiology. I have done the benign disorders. Then I have discussed the carcinoma of the esophagus. Thank you so much, students. It has been nice interacting with you. Do you want to ask any questions and anything? I will go back and explain to you, or else we'll. Is it okay that we can close, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you followed?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay, then, students. Next time we will come with another chapter. You can tell, madam, which chapter you want to actually have bits. I think since your sixth semester, lower classes, these topics will be more in your sixth semester, or the topics will be more helpful for you. You can choose the topic and tell me. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hello, Manjunath Gowda. Sir, Manjunath Gowda, you want to tell anything to madam? You can tell. Some of the students are in 9th semester also, madam.
Pardon?
Now some 9th semester students are joined actually. 4th year students, they are joined, madam.
Take the feedback from them and let me know. If
Yes,
they're not following, I will rectify and I may add some more things. Right?
Yes, madam.
And then, okay, we'll talk.
Manju, you want to tell anything, you can tell, madam.
Pardon?
Anything? Manjunath Gowda, he came back actually.
Manjunath.
No,
Manjunath, you can ask me.
Any topic you want to specifically ask?
You can tell me again. Anyhow, I think next class that madam will come, no? Another madam.
Something of general.
What?
General surgery topics.
General surgery is asking.
General surgery means the first few topics. That is surgical site infections, nutrition, shock, these things.
Yes, ma'am. Shock, burns, the basics, ma'am.
Then I have to study a lot. Lot of work for me, Manjunath, but I'll do it. Okay, bye. Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, madam. Thank you very much. Manju, ಏನೇನ್ ಬೇಕು ಹೇಳಿ ನಿಂದೇನು? Suchitra, but what you want to specifically ask, you ask me now. I'll discuss with madam and get you know, let you know people. What you wanted in general surgery?
General sir. Yes, sir. General surgery. Yes, sir.
What you specifically wanted to in general surgery? You are in 3rd year, 4th year, which semester?
Sir, 9th semester, 4th year.
4th year. So,
Yes,
Manjunath, so most of the students, madam was thinking, last class what happened was, only 3rd year students were there. And she was thinking most of your 3rd year. That's what happened. Anyway, it is not an issue. And I will convey, madam, now more of the 4th year students are coming. So, thyroid is being taken by Dr. Jyoti. Hello? Thyroid?
Yes,
and,
yes, sir.
Surgery, the basics will be taken care of. It will be taken care of. Okay? We are adding that also.
So she will teach general surgery, sir.
She's taking general surgery now. Esophagus, she has finished, I think so. Probably
Yes,
she
yes.
will go to stomach and all that. I have to discuss with the next topic now.
Sir, shock. I think.
Shock was once taken already. There is I'll let you know about shock. YouTube recorded video must be there.
There is a arterial.
Huh?
This is a